Lewis Hamilton had a terrible weekend in Imola. He finished P13 in a race where his teammate Russell finished P4 to get good points for the team. But why did Lewis have such a terrible weekend? The biggest issue that Mercedes had this weekend, other than porpoising, was issues with tyre warmup. Their tyres took a few laps to get in the right working window. So Mercedes did not have good pace in the first few laps. Since it was raining for most of the week in Imola, the temperatures were lower than usual and this amplified the tyre warm-up problems even more. Because of this issue, Mercedes did not have good qualifying pace, only managing to qualify P11 and P13 on Friday. But the tyre warm-up should not be an issue in the race after the first couple of laps. Mercedes showed strong pace in FP2, a session in which teams were focusing on race pace. So they should make their way up their field during the races, right? Right? Mercedes had the fifth fastest car on race pace. They were quicker than the likes of Alpine, AlphaTauri, Williams, Aston Martin and Haas. But the difference in car performance was not huge for overtaking easily. Especially, being stuck in a DRS train made it much more difficult to overtake. On Saturday's sprint, Hamilton and Russell were stuck in a DRS train with Vettel, Schumacher and Tsunoda. Both of them struggled to overtake during this race. Russell was stuck behind Schumacher and was unable to overtake him as they both got DRS. When Schumacher overtook Vettel on lap 15, Russell was now behind Vettel. He took another 3 laps to overtake Vettel despite Vettel not having DRS and arguably being in the second worst car this weekend. This shows how much difficult it was to overtake Imola and how Russell struggled to overtake other cars too. Hamilton was also stuck behind Tsunoda in the DRS train for almost the entirety of the race. Tsunoda overtook Vettel on lap 20, but Hamilton could not overtake Vettel as he did not have enough laps in the end of the race. So the sprint showed that it was difficult for the Mercedes to overtake slower cars when they were stuck in a DRS train. For the Grand Prix on Sunday, Russell was starting P11 and Hamilton was starting P14. Russell was on the clean side of the grid and this gave him a big advantage. He capitalized on the Sainz and Ricciardo incident and moved up to P6 by the end of lap 1. Hamilton, on the other hand, started on the dirty side of the grid and only gained 2 positions. He later overtook Alonso, who had significant car damage. Russell now had Magnussen ahead of him and he overtook him easily as Kevin was having very poor pace. Hamilton had Stroll, Tsunoda and Vettel ahead of him and it was difficult to overtake them as there was no DRS and there was just a single dry line on the track. With Hamilton struggling to overtake on track, it was time for the Mercedes strategists to pit Hamilton at the right time. However, they took the safe choice to pit on lap 18 like most of the grid. Gasly and Albon, who were behind Hamilton, had nothing to lose and they pit a lap earlier on lap 17. So they had a massive undercut and overtook Hamilton. Lewis also had a slow stop and a pit lane incident with Ocon, giving Ocon a 5-second time penalty. As a result of these incidents, Lewis lost 3 more positions to Ocon, Albon and Gasly without any fault of his own. Hamilton had Gasly and Albon ahead of him and he was stuck behind them for the rest of the race. Gasly had DRS from Albon but did not overtake him. Hamilton struggled to overtake Gasly as Gasly also had DRS. Both Albon and Gasly had better speed in the speed trap, which made life more difficult for Lewis. Hamilton caught up to Gasly at the end of the start-finish straight, but he was unable to get alongside him. He could not dive down the inside line as it was wet and he would just slide off the track. There was just a single dry line and the only way to overtake Gasly was to get completely ahead at the braking zone, which is very difficult. While it seems like Russell had a much better performance than Hamilton, it is not really true. Russell, like Lewis, struggled to overtake in a DRS train in the sprint. He also struggled to overtake Vettel in the sprint when Vettel did not have DRS. In the main race, it was George's brilliant start to the race that helped him gain many positions. If he did not get a good start to the race, he probably would have struggled to overtake like Hamilton. But because of his good start, he was in clean air for the majority of the race and could drive at a good pace. Lewis's issues this weekend was mainly due to the fact that he was always stuck in a DRS train. He never had clean air in front of him to show his true race pace. Also, the slow pit stop had a huge impact on his race. This weekend is just a one-off, and we can expect Lewis Hamilton to fight back at the Miami Grand Prix. Thank you for watching this video. Please click the like button if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more F1 content.